This video is meant to show you some of the highlights from the International Residential Code using the 2021 version of that document. The highlighted items I'm going to discuss and show you, they're there to help you pass the Residential Plans Examiner test and the Residential Building Inspector test. Chapter 1, some things you're going to want to highlight. So understand the IRC is applicable to townhomes and homes, regular houses up to 3 stories. If you're going to go outside of that, you're going to have to be in the realm of the International Building Code. Important to keep that in mind. And as you flip through this, I recommend just go through, highlight the things I've highlighted, underline the things that I've underlined. These are questions that I've seen over and over again in the 17 different ICC examinations I'm certified through. For instance, right of entry right here, this is frequently asked. When can an inspector go into a structure? They always ask reasonable times. Used material, this comes up occasionally. When is it appropriate for used material, such as windows, for instance, extracted from a demo or studs or whatever. It has to do with whether or not it's approved by the building official. It seems like when I took building plans examiner way back when, I think that was 2018, I took that. There was also a question regarding studs, and you basically not only you have to be approved by the building official, but it has to meet current specs for wood construction requirements. This is a question too in terms of who's gonna get the permit. It's going to be the owner's agent. As far as another question frequently on that subject is who's responsible for maintaining access to a structure for inspections. And it's actually the individual, that the permit holder or agent of the permit holder. So that's a question you'll get. Down here too, in terms of residential construction, these are asked frequently. So they'll pose a question like, what kind of construction does not require a permit? And they'll give you a bunch of stuff like fences that are 7 feet 1 inch. Okay, well, that based on this, fences not over 7 feet, ICC is trying to catch you. So just keep in mind, know this section 105.2 and the various exceptions to permits. Another one that's frequently asked is this one here on sidewalks. They'll give you a list of stuff like an attached 120 square foot structure or a detached 400 square foot building or a sidewalk. Which of these 3 or 4, whatever it happens to be, does not require a permit? And it's going to be a sidewalk. So take a look at that. Keep that in mind. Another question frequently asked is, when do you lose your permit? It's after 180 days. So I'm just going to quickly go through this. I recommend, if you're going to take the RBI Residential Plans Examiner, the RBI Residential Building Inspector, or the RPE Residential Plans Inspector, do all the highlights that you see in my books. And I'm zoomed out. My camera's not really clear, but I want to give you the opportunity to be able to succeed for free. And if you do this, if you highlight these various spots, underline the locations of importance that I have here, you're going to have a lot more success in passing that examination. I've never failed an exam. I've taken a lot of, like I said, I think honestly I've taken 17 different ICC certs, 18, something like that. I've never failed one. Some I've taken prep courses for, some I haven't. But the method I have that I've defined seems to work pretty good. Okay, make sure the building official always approves all amended documents. Building official has to keep the documents for 180 days. That comes up a lot. You'll have a bunch of stuff. Know the inspection requirements for residential planning. You'll have a few odds and ends here in terms of when it has to be done. Yeah, this is important. In fact, this is an exact question I pulled right from the test. When are you for for fire resistance rated construction? It would be section 302 of the IRC. But for this, that's requiring inspections. Do the inspections after the sheetrock's up, but before any plaster is applied. They're going to ask you that straight off the question. In fact, all the stuff is going to come up potentially in a question. The temporary certificate of occupancy, TCO. You can issue them. This is a question that'll come up now and then in various ICC certs. The objective is to make sure it's safe. So always look for the keyword of safe on that. Board of Appeals. One, the BO cannot be a part of the Board of Appeals, and the Board of Appeals is where you'd go to be able to, second guess, push back on the maybe an overbearing CO, an inspector, or whatever. Fortunately, in municipality, a lot of times they're going to yield to your building inspectors and COs, but you can push back if you're doing construction, make something happen, request a Board of Appeals, and this is the section that gives you that right to do that. Stop work order has to be in writing and delivered to the permit holder. Something to remember there. Definitions. When in doubt, when you can't find something, go to definitions. Here's a question right off one of the tests. A court. So the definition of a court. Occasionally you'll see questions like it'd be very easy to pick fire stop instead of draft stop. Know that the draft stop is what restricts air movement. It has to be 1,000 square feet or less, that kind of thing. And the purpose behind it is for fire stops to keep fire from, moving, but the reality is it's called draft stop. So don't get messed up on that on a question. Habitable space. This is really important to know. You need to know that a kitchen is a habitable space. A bathroom is not a habitable space. You'll see in the codes where this definition comes up. For instance, natural lighting. Natural lighting is not required for bathrooms if there's ventilation. But if you look in that section for interior environment, it uses the term habitable space. So, and as I recall, it's not even italicized. Generally speaking, italicized words like this here, that means there's a definition. But sometimes there's not an italicized space. So just you got to have an open mind about what's in there and have some flexibility. A masonry unit, MCU, masonry concrete unit. Understand that 75% of its cross-section area is hollow. It's the definition of a hollow unit. That'll come up occasionally. Natural durable wood. Know that cedar is decay resistant and termite resistant. So it's you have a decay resistant here, but it's both like an eastern cedar. Eastern cedar is both decay and termite resistant. So redwood is as well. A question came up once: which of these is not decay resistant? They give you teak. On one question I saw somewhere it was teak. Another one was red oak. Know that neither of those are decay resistant. So skylights, the magic number is 15 degrees on that. In other words, if you have a slope greater than 15 degrees, it's a skylight. If it's less than 15 degrees, it's standard glazing. So that's the delineation there. Wood structural panels, defined as plywood. It's really helpful when you're looking at the tables for fasteners and stuff like that to understand wood structural panels. That's plywood, OSB, stuff like that. Design criteria. Understand that if you're in something, if you're trying to build something in the IRC, but it's like greater than 3 stories, or, you need to go to the IBC. There's going to be times when you need to do that. It's an important delineation. Let's see. Yeah. So just basically go over the stuff I have here. Tables here. Always know your footnotes. Like there's a question on a test I had. I don't remember. Might have been plans examiner. I can't remember where it was, building or fire. In any event, the question was, what kind of concrete would you use in Minnesota for a slab in a carport? Well, normally speaking, 2,500 PSF or PSI is sufficient for most of your concrete applications and things like foundations in normal applications. Then you got to jump up for 3,000 for like carports, normal slabs. You got to go to 3,500 square feet if it's severe weather. And how you determine that is you go and look at the weather conditions. Just know this table, understand where weathering requires a higher strength of concrete. If you're in severe conditions, your slabs are 3,500 square feet. The other thing to keep in mind is you're not going to have the jurisdiction is going to be responsible for the defining the seismic design category. Okay, so ask your jurisdiction. If you're asked on a test about this, the seismic design category in table 301.2, know that it's the jurisdiction that has to assign it. So these are just the various wind, seismic loads, things like that. You can go through that, give some temperature rates, windborne debris. Yeah, well, anyway, I don't have time to explain all this. Just basically look through this, underline the sections I have underlined or highlighted. You'll do okay if you do that. Trust me on that. You don't have to have perfect knowledge on this, but I promise if you don't go through and know these sections, or I should say if you know these sections, you'll do well, or better, I should say. A question that I specifically had on the test for residential building inspector was, what size, for the purposes of this code, dimensions of lumber specified shall be deemed to be nominal. Okay, so they actually ask you that. So know that it's nominal, and they give you 4 selections. It's actual, or I can't remember what the options were, but one was nominal, and that's the one you'd pick. Okay, this is an important section. Know that your storage buildings, 20 PSF. It's kind of funky. It's the only one in here that gives storage, but if you need to find something storage, it's going to be the same thing with uninhabitable attics, okay? The other thing, balconies and decks. Don't be confused between the two. Just know that decks are going to have 40 PSF. You're going to be asked, like, there's this, I can't remember, what was it, 40 by 100... No, what was it? Just bear with me. 40 by 10. Yeah, it was a 40-foot by 10-foot deck. What's the total expected load? It'd be, whatever they have. Maybe it was a 10 by 100-foot deck, so 1,000 square feet. What is the total, load you got to design for? It'd be 40 times 1,000, so 40,000 pounds. That kind of thing. Here's another question that'll come up. Know that a point load on a guard is 200 pounds. So, and that's OSHA as well. You're going to see that all over in the code, but you need to know that. Same thing with handrails, 200 pounds. This is another issue, like if you have concrete supporting a car, know that it's 50 PSF average and 2,000 pounds point source. Other sleeping areas, other than sleeping areas. So sleeping areas are 30 PSF. So if you have like a bedroom, that's what all the tables for joists are founded on. It's 30 PSF. But like a living room, if you're designing a living room, know that it's 40 PSF, okay? Jump over here. Yeah, I'm not going to go through all this stuff. Just highlight the stuff. Look through the stuff I've looked at. I'm not going to read it. I don't have time to waste your time on this, but basically know what this says, okay? Oh yeah, and one thing I've seen coming up, common walls, you have to separate townhouse units. There's a common wall. Know that if you have rated construction, you can't have any mechanical equipment in that rated wall. So they'll give you a question like, which of these options is not permitted in a common wall that separates dwellings or separates townhomes, different units, residential units in the townhomes. And they'll say, give you these 3 correct answers, and then the one they won't give you is there's like, mechanical systems with less than or more than 26 gauge steel. Well, the fact is you can't have any mechanical equipment in one of those walls. So don't be duped by, ICC's attempts to mislead you. This is a crazy important table to know. I had a lot of questions from this table, 302.1 parenthesis 1. Know that you cannot have any openings, no openings closer than 3 feet, with one exception, and that is a foundation vent. Otherwise, nothing's allowed. If any questions in there and saying, well, what percent of the walls allowed to have openings, 25%, 40%, whatever, there'll be a 0%. Choose 0%. In fact, I think that was the question I was asked. Know that it's 2 hour separation, unless you're suppressed, then it's a 1 hour separation. But you'll be asked this 2 hour separation. The reality is all residential construction requires suppression now. but the fact is, a lot of municipalities amend that, saying it doesn't require it. So what the code does is it just assumes that certain amendments are going to be made. So it gives the option for suppressed or non-suppressed. So just you're going to ask yourself, well, why the heck do they have the non-suppressed section? And that's because of expectations on municipalities, amending the code not to require it. Let's see. Know this. You got to know that there's a 1 hour fire rated construction for exterior walls under 5 feet from an adjacent building. It's important to know that. Parapet walls 30 inches. Know these exceptions too. There's going to be some allowances. These are common things that pop up in the code. Just know that. Two-family dwelling. Yeah, 1 hour. So this has to do when you have actual sleeping units, you need them separated. I know it says 1 hour here, 1 hour here. 2 hours, excuse me, 1 hour if it's suppressed, but it's 2 hours. That's actually the separation required between the townhomes, for instance. But dwelling units, you need to separate by 1 hour. That's the difference here. And it's a half an hour if you're suppressed. So just know those sections. Know the only definition of annular that you can find is here. That's that space around like a sprinkler pipe. Know that. Opening protectives. Oh yeah, so like if you have like a garage, know this. If you have a garage right adjacent to a residential dwelling, or a residential R3 type thing, know that you have to have a solid door, 1 3/8 inch minimum thickness. The other thing is you cannot have openings, like opening protectives, like a window or a door, whatever it may be, between any dwelling unit where you sleep and a garage. It's prohibited by code. But like if you're going between a garage and like a living room, you have to have a door with at least a solid 1 3/8. There's some allowances there, but generally that's what's used. Okay, so down here at the bottom, know this, okay, straight up. No, this is a question. I was specifically asked this right off the test. For between a garage and a residence, a lot of people in the construction trade say, well, just put 5/8 type X up everywhere, 5/8 inch up everywhere. It's actually not the case. What you need to do is from the residence. So if you have like a residential application adjacent to a garage, you can use 1/2 inch standard gypsum. And let me explain something. The difference between type X and standard is glass fibers. So type X has glass fibers in it. And what that does is it prevents collapse and deterioration in fire conditions. So that's why type X is rated and standard is not. But the fact is, if you have an uninhabitable, let me be very clear, uninhabitable attic or adjacent to like a living room, it's 1/2 inch gypsum. But if you have like a bonus room above your garage, so it's a habitable attic, you have to use 5/8 inch type X. That's something that'll catch you on. Let's see here. Fire blocking. Oh, oops. Fire blocking. Let's see. So, yeah, I recall in the RBI residential building inspector, I was specifically asked, gave 2-story structure and an attic. Where do you need fire blocking? The question was between stories and between the top story and the attic. So you got to know that. Oh yeah, know some of this too. This is how it's goofy. They'll catch you on this. You can use a wood structural panel that's 23/32, but the joints has to be backed. Okay, so they'll give you a series of options, and they're all technically right. They say which of these can you use for fire blocking, and they'll give you 23/32, blah 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 blah. But they'll catch you on the joints backed. That's the one that'll be false. If it doesn't have joints backed, it's not allowed. So that's what'll throw you. Draft stopping, 1,000 square feet. I think I already mentioned that. See, floor assemblies. Yeah, I don't want to read this. Just highlight what I have here. I'm trying to remember all the stuff that you 8%. Okay, keep in mind, habitable. I mentioned before the definition habitable. You see how that's not italicized there, habitable? You'd think that it wouldn't apply, but the reality is this does not apply to bathrooms. Okay? So you have your option in bathrooms. You can have like 20 CFM continuous for your vent or 50 CFM intermittent with the switch. you could also have a window that's openable, and I think you have to have at least 3 square feet on that so you don't have to have the vent, the mechanical vent. Know the section. It'll catch you if you don't know it. Just know some of those details. But the point is, you don't need an openable window or a window period in a bathroom. Elsewhere, you need windows. Unless you have natural lighting, there's some allowance here, but 8% is the magical number. The question I had, there's a room from the test. I'm giving you the question from the test. It was a 10 by 12 room. I can't remember if it was a living room or bedroom or if it even said, but it said, how much natural lighting through windows do you need? Well, it's 8%. 8% times 120, that's 9.6. So 9.6 square feet was the answer. If you're relying on natural ventilation, you need 4%. So if you have a 100 square foot room, you need to know, it's 4 square feet's the answer. Adjoining rooms, know this. This is important. If you have like a room that's not vented, there's an allowance for you to use either 1/10. Anyway, I'm not going to go into details, but just know this, know what that is, because that's the exemption. Yeah, this is the bathroom section. You can use 3 square feet here. With the exception. Keep in mind the exception there. Always look at the exceptions. Okay. I'm going to zip through. I want to get the highlights so you can have more success passing. Just like I said, please highlight all the stuff that I have. Okay, so this is a question you'll see. So if you have exhaust air, now think about all your sewer vents, whatever it else may be. The magic term is it can't exhaust onto a sidewalk. That's what they'll ask you. The other thing is, screens, 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch. Just keep that in mind. That's the range that you can have those on. There's some allowances there. Let me give you an example. So you cannot have less than 1/8 inch openings on your vents, your crawl space vents, for instance. Okay, so it's a little bit different than this. Just highlight, read through this stuff. You'll figure it out. Okay, interior stairway illumination. Know that it's 6 or more risers. If you have 6 or more risers, you need a switch at the top and the bottom to control your lighting at the landing. Exterior stairways. So if you have an exterior stairway going up to like a side door, know that that's the top landing of the stairway that needs the light. This is also a question frequently seen on various ICC tests. The magic number is 68 degrees Fahrenheit. You have to have your mechanical systems or whatever heating system designed so you can maintain 68 degrees Fahrenheit at 3 feet above the floor. This is also important. Minimal habitable room. Keep in mind a bathroom is not a habitable room. A storage closet, a hallway, not a habitable room. A living room, a bedroom is. Okay. So 70 square feet. Minimum width is 7 feet. Does not apply to kitchens though. That's something that'll come up. Okay, this is something else. This is one of those differences from the commercial code. Minimum ceiling height 7 feet, but if you have a sloped ceiling, you can go and measure your available floor area to 5 feet. You can have a 5-foot ceiling there. Up to 50% of your room with a sloped ceiling can be, under 7 feet basically. Okay, let's see. 7 feet, they give you that. Now keep in mind, 7.6 is the minimum requirement in commercial. So the IBC. IRC allows you to go 7 feet. So there's a lot of stuff different here than you're going to see in the commercial codes. Okay, like riser height. We'll get there. It's like, 7 inches for riser. Commercial code, residential, 7.75. A lot of differences like that. Okay. There's the allowance on 50% I mentioned before. Okay, so you'll have a question on the test. It says, which of these type of plumbing devices are required in a building? The one not here would be like, I saw this question, I put this here, would be like a laundry tub. You don't need that. So that'd be the one that's not required based on that. This is a question right from the most recent test I took in residential. How high do you need non-absorbent finishing in a shower? It's 6 feet. Glazing, also keep in mind, this is important. 21 clearance ahead of the toilet, 15 inches from center line to the side. Need to know that. Minimum size of a bathroom is 900 inches, 900 square inches, 30 by 30. Actually, minimum dimension is 30 inches no matter what, but yeah, so that's something to keep in mind. There is a question about a foldable seat. You can have a foldable seat in one of these as long as in its up position it doesn't violate that 900 square inches or the minimum of 30 inch dimension. Okay, glazing. Few important things to know. What is considered emergency or hazardous glazing? The question is, if you have mirrors, let's say you do a surround on your bathtub with mirrors, if they're permanently, like glued onto, your site, your plywood, whatever it is, it's not considered hazardous. If it's not like tempered glass, it would be considered hazardous if it's not firmly attached to like a door or something. So keep that in mind. 60 inches, if it's below 60 inches high off the ground, or if you open the door, if the radius of the door 24 inches as you open it, it's a hazardous condition. So that's something else that you'll get asked. Yeah, 60 inches comes up a lot. You'll see this all over the place. So like pools and stuff like that, 60 inches high off the ground or 60 inches away from the pool side, either one of those make it hazardous. So, yeah, which means you're going to need tempered glass or one of the other options for protection. Protected glass would be things like this, fully tempered. It's a skylight unit, but it applies. Wired glass, heat strengthened glass. Those would, for the most part, you look at the exceptions, there might be some exceptions. Okay, stairways are different. Keep this in mind, okay? Remember everywhere else is 60 inches. It's 36 inches. Just it'll throw you if you don't highlight that. It's 36 inches if it's adjacent to a stairway. Keep that in mind. Let's see here. Yeah, and you have this nice figure for glazing and stairways. So just know that there's a subtle difference for stairway glazing glass next to stairways than there is for other stuff. Oh yeah, and if you don't have protected like tempered glass, you need a screen. I was actually asked this on one of the tests I took. A 1 inch by 1 inch mesh under a skylight. That's what you have to do to capture like broken glass and stuff like that. The reason you don't see it is everybody's going to use like fully tempered or something like that. Oh yeah, curbs. This is a question you'll get asked too. If you're above 212 slope, you need a 4-inch curb for your skylight. That's what you'll get asked. Carports. Okay, now remember what I said before, dwelling units. You can't have a garage next to a dwelling unit, okay? Like sleeping quarters with an opening. But they'll ask you this question. So can you put a bedroom with a door open into a carport? And the answer is yes. And this is why. They'll ask a carport with one opening or two openings, things like that. By definition, a carport has 2 or more sides. So don't let the definitions throw you, because by nature of a carport, you have natural flowing air going through it, which means carports are not treated like garages, which means you could put a carport right with the door opening right into a bedroom. It's legal. Oh yeah, okay, emergency escape and rescue openings. What you need to remember is above your level of exit discharge, so like your second floor or third floor, it's 5.7 square feet. But if you're on the level of exit discharge, it's 5 feet. Same thing below grade. If you're in the basement, it's 5.7 square feet. You will get asked this. Every test, you're going to get asked that. The other thing is you can't have your emergency window, escape hatch, escape opening more than 44 inches off of the finished floor. And like this, I was actually asked this on a test. So if you have a, let's say you have a deck over a bedroom, what's an allowable egress path under a deck? It's a 36 by 36. Just remember that. And then for your window wells, for your basement, servicing your basement emergency rescue opening, 9 square feet is the magic number. So the surface area, the horizontal surface area over that window well, it's 9 square feet. You'll get asked that at one point, whether it's IFC or IRC, it'll come up. Okay, here's something else. I don't know if you've ever built a residential home. If you have a window well more than 44 inches deep, you need a ladder to be able to get out of your emergency rescue opening. You're allowed to encroach into the required area by 6 inches. Um, and then you do need a ladder, like I said, if it's more than 44 inches, and you don't have to meet the requirements of means of egress. So, not required to comply with the means of egress section for those ladders. Uh, all right, means of egress. Let's go to section 311. Um, you can't have your main door in a garage or going through a garage. They'll ask you like living room, kitchen, laundry room, stuff like that. They'll give you garage as an option. Garage is the one not allowed. You have to have at least one. Yeah, this comes up. It's kind of weird, but yeah, a house, a residence needs at least one egress door. I've been asked that. Um, Oh, this is interesting. Like, normally in the commercial codes, you have to have a landing in all doors. Not the case with residential construction. If your door opens inward, you can get away with having a step going up to that door. That's 7 3/4 your riser height. So as long as it opens up inside, if you do have a landing, you're allowed a 1.5 inch gap, which is quite a bit more. I think you're only allowed half an inch gap in commercial codes. See, nothing spectacular. Width of a hallway, just remember 3 feet. Everything's 3 feet. Stairs are 3 feet. One of the questions I had is what's the minimum required width on a stairway in a residential occupancy? It's clear width. Let me be clear width. It's 27 inches. And that's because of handrail to handrail width. But stairways themselves are always 36 inches. So if you have two handrails, one on either side of a minimum 36-inch stairway, then that it's 4.5 inches per side for your handrail width, which means you can have 27 inches. That's where that number comes from. Okay, 6 feet 8 inches. Keep in mind, this is 80 inches. That's the head clearance in a standard stairway. Technically, it's 6'6" or 78 inches for doors in residences, and also for winding stairways. Or so a little bit different. So know the differences. Treads rather than commercial is minimum 11. You probably hear 7-11 everywhere. Residence is 10. It's 7 3/4 and 10 inches. 7 3/4 is your riser height. 10 is your tread depth. Winder treads, it's 6 inches minimum depth. Just keep that in mind. They'll ask you about that. Nosings. Let's see. Oh yeah. So your nosing, you can't project more than 1.25 inches. Just keep that in mind on your nosings for stairways. But you can have them open as long as you can't pass a ball 4 inches under that tread. This is a question you will be asked at some point, guarantee it. You'll always be asked this. Well, handrails are necessary above 3. Now, word this differently. Sometimes it's above 3, sometimes it's 4 or more. So know the differences there. The other thing you'll be asked is handrail height is 34 to 38 inches above your nosing of your stairway. I already mentioned handrail projections. It's 4.5. Minimum size of your handrail is 1.25 inches. Spiral staircase. Know that it's 26 inches, but it's kind of a weird. Instead of the 7 3/4 riser height, it's 9.5. Know that. That's different. Yeah, this will come up all over the place. No, it's 1 in 48. Excuse me. No, I apologize. The ramps are 1 in 12. So even in ADA, Americans with Disability Act, your worst case slope is 1 in 12. Although in certain situations, like you can go to 1 in 8, in like movie theaters and stuff like that. What this allows you to do is if you can't put a 1 in a 12, you can go a 1 in 8. So just keep that in mind. Landings, you have to have your landings on your ramps. Just magic numbers 36 inches. It's top and bottom where doors are there, or ramp changes directions. You'll get a question like, Well, where in this list are landings required, and it says in like a transition slope? Not the case. So don't be duped by that. Handrails, you need a handrail if you have a ramp more than 1 in 12. I'm not going to read all these. I want you to know the highlights. This is good. Guards. You need guards. Like if you have a deck more than 30 inches, that's where you need a guardrail. Otherwise, you don't. That's something that pops up a lot. Let's see. Also, let's see. Required guards at open walking surfaces. It's 42 inches is what they're going to ask, but no, this allowance here is 36. Normally, it's 42 inches. It'll throw you. And know that you can't pass a ball of 4 inches through your guards, your fall protection. So when you build a structure, you're going to put like some verticals in there so the ball can't fit through there. Now, one thing to keep in mind: the 4 inch does not apply to the stairway guards. That's 4 3/8. So look down here; it's 4 3/8. So don't get thrown by that. Same thing. The triangle formed at the open side of stairs. Know that it's 6 inches there. That'll pop up occasionally. I've never seen that on tests, but you need to know that. Smoke alarms. This you'll get asked on this. The question will be like, which of these does not need a smoke alarm? And they'll give you like an unoccupied attic. That's the answer. So you need them on every floor and every sleeping unit. Basically, is what you need to keep in mind. And right outside the sleeping unit, but that usually it's the one on the. Okay, smoke alarms need to be powered by wiring, house wiring, as well as batteries. Know that keep in mind, a fire alarm system is different than standalone smoke alarms. You can actually have a fire alarm system in lieu of the smoke alarms. That's what this is giving you the option for. Foam plastic insulation. No, this is it's different than the commercial piece. This is a flame spread index of 75 based on the Steiner tunnel test, ASTM E119. Or no, hold on a sec. Why can I think? Metal block. Oh, ASTM E84. So it's 75 there. Everything you're going to see is smoke index of 450. They've just defaulted to 450 because it works for everything. There's no reason to change it. Generally speaking, across the board, you need 1/2 inch gypsum on your plastic insulation. So there's going to be some exceptions to that, like if you have an ESR, an engineered specifications report, an ICC ESR, you can get away with having no gypsum protection, but generally need 1/2 inch. There's some exceptions here, but just keep that in mind. All right. I mean, right there, protection against ignition. You could use 3/8 inch gypsum board. There's some other odds and ends here. Okay, protection of wood against wood rot. Oh yeah, you need to keep this in mind. 18 inches above girders, 12 inches above joists, or you got to use a preservative treated or naturally, rot resistant wood, basically. Something else here, you don't think about this. If you're bringing wood through masonry concrete, you have to have a clearance around it. Well, one, you actually have to have 3 inches of bearing on a concrete or masonry foundation. And the other thing is you have to have a 1/2 inch around the tops and sides and ends for air circulation. Uh, Wood siding has to be 6 inches or less from the ground. Keep in mind, or 2 inches from concrete. Keep in mind, it's 4 inches. It's 4 inches for bricks, and it's 0 inches if you have naturally wood resistant or rot resistant wood. So there's some exceptions. So don't be caught up on the 6 inches. There's some exceptions, but generally speaking, it's 6 inches. So if you just memorize that, you'd be in a good spot. Okay, wood concrete. If you're untreated wood in a basement on concrete slabs, you got to have a separation of 1 inch. Just keep that in mind. Pressure preservative treated wood. If you're in direct contact of your concrete, that's going to come up. Okay, this is actually something I had asked recently at my most recent test, and that is what required information is on the wood, the stamp from the agency, and it's this stuff here, but it doesn't require what species of wood is on there. So that was the option. It was what species of the wood. I just looked through there and identified it. Here for aluminum. You can never use aluminum fasteners, and they'll ask you that a lot. Aluminum and preservative treated wood's a no-go. So just go through that list there. Oh yeah, they'll ask you what's allowed for protection against termites. I think the option in the one of the questions I saw was you can't have it on stilts, or to justify no termite control. That's not suitable. Foam plastic protection. Yeah, know this, 6 inches. So if you have like in a termite area, you have to be 6 inches above the ground with your foam plastic. Okay. So just know that. Oh yeah, you'll be asked this. The IFC requires site addresses to be in place. Know that your letters have to be 4 inches high and half an inch in stroke size. Let's see. Okay, yeah, you can actually build. There's no reason you can't build in a flood zone. Some municipalities won't let you, but the reality is, if you're going to be below the flood zone, you can only use that area for storage or parking of vehicles. That's kind of an important topic to know. And you can do it for like flood, like Class A, like on the ocean where you have a lot of big tidal waves or something. You can't have foundations. I want to be clear, but in general flood zones, you can have your foundation. You cannot have a foundation in a coastal area if it's flooded, straight up. And I'll get to that, but you can in like a Class D type flood zone, 2 openings. If there's 2 openings on either side of the building to allow the water to go through, basically, and it has to be at least. So anyway, just read through that. There's a lot of stuff there you need to know. But what I'm trying to get at is just highlight the stuff that I have highlighted. You'll be able to pass your test, okay? For the most part, you'll at least know where it is. If you just go through and read the highlights, you'll know how to pass the test. Yeah, I mentioned before, you can't have footers in a building on a coastal A zone. You can have pilings and columns, but no footers. Okay. There's a caveat. You can have a foundation or footers, things like foundation walls, but they cannot support the structure. That's how the allowance is. Yeah, in fact, that's right there. I underlined it right there. Yeah, 322.3.5. Okay, mezzanines. So this is no different than in commercial. It's 7 feet above and below for clear height. The difference is you're allowed 7 feet across the board for in residences. So normally it's 7.6 in commercial, but it's 7 feet across the board in the IRC. So it might throw you. I jump back and forth quite a bit between commercial and fire, but never used residential. I just studied this to for the MCP requirements, Master Code Professional. I don't use the IRC in my occupation. I built some homes. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, I'm the HJ for commercial side. Okay, let's see here. I don't want to read all this. Oh yeah, you will be asked this. No, okay, so it has to slope away. So if you have like, let's say you have concrete or asphalt up to a foundation, you have to slope away at 2% for the first 10 feet. Or let's say you don't have the 10 feet, you can use drains or swales to be able to have adequate. Yeah. Okay. The other thing is soil. This is an important topic when you're dealing with foundations. If you're under 1500 PSF for your soil, you have to have a soil investigation done. More money added to the project, unfortunately. Um, Fasteners. A 316 is stainless. So that was something that popped up somewhere I saw once. Wood treatment. Know the ratings. Okay, so take a look here. Wood treatment. I want to show you something. Lumber and plywood shall be pressure preservative treated according to AWPAU1. Okay. Well, know that back here in this chapter, let me pull up the chapter. What chapter is that? So in chapter 44, so chapter 44 is where you're going to have the standards listed. So if you're like wondering sometime, well, what standard do I use? And this is for the test. If you're not in this section, let me just AWPU. Let me just jump over here. I want to show you this. I think it'd be worthwhile to know. There's a lot of ASTM. AWPA. Okay, take a look. So treated woods. Okay, so this popped up somewhere in one of my tests. U1. Okay, so if you're looking for something on the test and you don't know what section it is within the code, just go back to chapter 44. They have all the listed standards, and you can just check them all and come up with the right one. That's how that works. All right, pop back over here. What did I leave off on? I got to jump through. Sorry. Okay. All right. Okay, so we'll just go to foundations. I think that closed up that. We are here. Concrete. Okay, so yeah, know your 40,000 psi for your rebar. That's the minimum you need. And I mentioned before, so like just know this, know the columns. So you can go. They had the other tables in chapter the beginning of chapter 3, like 30 was that 302, 301. I mentioned Minnesota as an example of severe. That's where you're going to pop up to 3,500 psi for a garage floor slab. Generally speaking, your concrete for moderate weather for like slabs and carports, garages can be 3,000 psi, but it needs to be air entrained. So always look at the footnotes. Generally speaking, your walls can be as low as 2,500 psi. That would be for something that's has negligible weathering. Generally, in my area, I'm going to use 3,000 psi for a wall, a slab. Okay, concrete footers, exciting stuff. Generally speaking, your minimum width on a footer is 12 inches, required by code. I think most people go 16 inches, but I think that's generally the minimum. Yeah, and keep in mind, well, I'll get there to the other stuff. Okay, yeah, so you always have to have at least 2 inches. So your footer has to extend past your foundation by a minimum of 2 inches typically. If you're doing like a chimney, it's 6 inches. There's some other caveats. Yeah, usually, anyway, just read through that. There's some differences you need to be aware of. Permanent wood foundation. A lot of people don't realize you can build foundations out of wood. A lot of people don't. But, if you look at some of the lobbying groups, some of the, agencies that throw their numbers out, pressure treated wood foundation is going to last a very long time and is not a bad option. But here's an example. If you have 2x6 construction, for instance, you need a 2x8 base for that. So that's just telling you how to build that. Yeah, just go through, highlight everything I've highlighted. Okay, rebar. If you're in category D, you need a rebar. Number 4 vertical bars, not more than 4 feet on centers, but when you get down to your horizontal bars, number 4 within 12 inches of the top, and they'll ask you how close to the bottom it needs to be. It's 3 to 4 inches. Know that. It comes up occasionally 3 to 4 inches from the bottom, from your footer on the bottom. Yeah, they'll ask this too. This kind of just know this section. I saw that once. Oh yeah, protection. Okay, so this is where ACI 318 comes in occasionally, but I think everything's here. Know this. Okay, know if you're going to be doing like a dirt pour, so the concrete is being poured right on, like a footer. Let's say a footer, or anyway, 3 inches. Your rebar has to have 3 inches of protected covering. if you're above a size 6, so 3/4 inch rebar for like a foundation wall, you have to be 2 inches. Um, if you're 6 and below, it's 1.5 on the outside, where you're going to weather. There's just a few things you need to know like that. But just highlight the stuff I have. Interior, the total cover from ACI 318 is 3/4 inch on the inside of your foundation in your basement. Um, yeah, remember all footers, you have to be 12 inches to the bottom of the footer, below below undisturbed soil, or below where the frost line is. So that's something that I was asked that about my recent test. Step footers, if your slopes exceeding 1 in 10, so if you have a slope, let's say you're sloped, if it's more than 1 in 10, you got to do a stepped. So, bam, 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 a stepped foundation. So that's the magic number, 1 in 10. Your sole plate on your foundation wall, you have to have 1/2 inch bolts embedded 7 inches in your concrete, whether it's insulated concrete forms or whatever. The 7 inches in, 6 feet, no more than 6 feet on center, 12 inches to the end of your, like if you're using like a 2x10 or whatever as your sole plate on your foundation. Remember, 12 inches, 6 feet, and 1/2 inch bolt, 7 inches in the concrete. Just remember that stuff. Let's see here. Oh yeah, 12 inches. What's the foundation elevation? So if you're putting a house with a street gutter, you have to have the street gutter at least 12 inches below the top of your foundation and 2% per foot. So if you have 100 feet, you're 100 feet away from the gutter. You have to be 3 feet above finished grade, basically, for your foundation. All right. Boy, tell you, talking so fast, my head hurts. But I want to actually go through the whole book with you. I know, long, boring video, but trust me, you gotta know the stuff if you're gonna pass the test. Okay, footings for wood. You have to have stone no greater than 3/4 inch. Just know the tables here. Oh yeah, so if you're like in a severe area, your corners of your foundation needs to have frost protection at the footings. So you go 60 inches basically in away from the corner with your insulation. So there's actually yeah, you can go through. They tell you what your required what do you call it, PSI is, what compressive strength is. So that's where you'll find it. Plain masonry construction. Oh yeah, they'll give you some abstract questions. This is one I had to look like mad to find. Uniform soil classification system. Okay, so just know that that's how your soil classes are defined. The question is, well, how are soil classes defined? And they give you NFPA standards, blah, 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 UL standards. It's actually a unified soil classification system. Unbalanced backfill. Let me explain one thing. So let's say your wall is 8 feet, 8 inches, but the dirt against it's 5 feet. And what that means is in this type of soil, I'd have to look up. There's another. If I go to 405.1, that'll tell me what these definitions are. But if I'm in CL soil, I need a number 5 rebar at 48 inch on centers. That's your vertical reinforcement. So to be able to have that configuration, that's what you need. So just kind of know these chapters, not just highlight the stuff I highlighted. These are the things I've seen on the tests. And I've taken like all the tests. I mean, so you kind of have a feel for what they are. Okay, reinforcement, flat basement walls. Okay, so like here's an example. GM, once again, table 405.1. So if you have an 8-inch nominal wall, your soil type's GM, it's non-rated. In other words, there's non-reinforced. I can have 6 feet of unbalanced backfill height with a 8-inch, 8-foot wall. So. And I'm moving the book so you can see the highlights. So if you don't see one, I don't have it highlighted. Okay, concrete foundation walls. Yeah, okay. This will pop up. Okay, so the question will come up. What minimum thickness of concrete foundation wall can I have in a seismic category D? You normally think 7.5 inches, right? Well, they'll throw you with this question. If you have like some kind of a step wall or something, or what, you framed it in. If you're no more than 4 feet 6 inches, you can actually go 6 inches on your foundation in a seismic category D zone. Something to keep in mind. Yeah, bricks have to be about 4 inches above um, the ground. I mentioned before 6 inches is typical for like wood construction, for wood siding, but you can do 4 inches for bricks. Know that 16 inches, it's the minimum thickness of a rubble stone foundation. I've never seen any new rubble stone foundations. I don't know who's making them, but um, anyway. Okay, yeah, you get asked this every time. So if you have hollow masonry units that are solidly filled, how high can the pier be? Well, it's 10 times the minimal thickness. So if you have, I think the question I had was a 16 by 16 pier filled, how high could it be? It's 160 inches. Okay. Oh yeah, know that the drainage characteristic of sandy clays is medium. That's a question that was asked once. Okay. Okay, this is a question that I've had recently. Drainage tiles. If you're doing a drainage system, how deep does the crushed stone need to be under it? And the answer is 2 inches. Also, if you're having a drain, you need to extend a foot beyond the outside edge of your footing. Vapor retardants are always 6 mil thick. If you're putting like a 6 mil poly down for your basement or whatever, it's a 6 mil thick when they ask what size polyethylene vapor retarder to use. Here's something else that's worth considering. So if you're damp proofing, there's a difference between damp proofing and waterproofing. But anything allowed for waterproofing, you can still use for damp proofing. So you'll get a question like of this list of stuff, which one can I use for damp proofing my building? And you come over to the waterproofing, and in that one, I think it was 60 mil flexible polymer cement. Okay, yeah, you'll get asked this one. The question is, like for instance, I was asked, what is the minimum dimensions for a wood post? It doesn't tell you anything more than that. It doesn't say, is it a foundation post, whatever. It's 4x4, and then 3x3 is the steel, 3-inch round diameter. Okay, this applies to attics and crawl spaces. There's ways to lower this or to raise this to 300 square feet, but if, for instance, you are in a standard, ground exposed crawl space, it's 1 square foot of required openings in your foundation for each 150 square feet. So if I had a 3,000 square foot foundation, I would need 20 square feet of like openings. And let's say you're using an 8 by 16, 8-inch by 16-inch opening. Um, it's you're not going to have 100% clearance through. So a lot of times your mesh will have blockages. The factory will give it to you, but if it's like a metal louvers, for instance, it's usually 75% effective. So what you would do is just calculate. Well, the question you'll be asked is on like a roof or a foundation. it'll say it's 1,500 square feet. How much opening do I need on a roof for soffit vents or whatever, or foundation vents? The answer for 1,500 square feet would be 10 square feet of openings. Clear. That's clear openings. Clear openings. I want to be very clear about that. Now you can reduce the foundation vents. You can if it's covered with a vapor retarder and it's taped and everything else, you can reduce that to 1 in 1,500. The attics, there's some allowances that reduce it to 1 in 300. You can also just have, for like a cold area like where I'm at, you don't want those openings. You could actually vent at 1 cubic feet of ventilation for every 50 square feet. That's possible too. Access, okay, access to the floor. They'll throw you on this. It's 18 by 24 through the floor, through the side of the foundation to get in the crawl space. It's 16 by 24, so don't get duped by that. You'll get asked, just basically highlight. Okay, know this. Know that if you're more than 4 feet, you have to have a double header. More than 6 feet, you have to have a hangers on your girders, your your headers. Just know that these floor joist tables exist. Let's go through one really quick. So sleeping area is 30 psf. Live load, you're 30 psf. So if I have a dead load spec at 10 psf, I want to use 2x10s, 16-inch centers, using Hemfer number 2. The maximum span is 1610 for that. There's an example. I'm not going to go through all these. Just kind of know the ones I've highlighted. They're the ones I've seen. And usually ICC just they ask the same questions over and over again. I mean, they have like a list of like 800 for an 80 question test, but they'll just kind of randomly pick the same ones. Okay, cantilever, just kind of know this, that you can actually, from the foundation wall, you can cantilever out for a supporting structure. Just know that there's some allowances for that. Also know wood always has to have 1.5 inches bearing on wood or metal. It's 3 inches on concrete. That's an important thing to know. Yeah, bridging. If you have like 2x12s, it's every 8 feet for bridging to maintain your so your 2x12s don't deform. Notches. Okay, this is important. You will always get questions on notches in any kind of uh, building inspector class, whether it's residential or commercial. Okay, no, it's 1/6 of the depth in the middle third. Notches at the end can be at 1/4. Notches. So it's 1/6 generally, but at the end it's 1/4. Just keep that in mind. Holes. You can't be close to the 2 inches to the top or bottom of your joist. For holes. Oh yeah, know that engineering wood products, they're prohibited unless they're specifically there. When you're dealing with like a TJI, you're going to have like a knockout. Those are specifically designed, so you have some allowance there. But if the allowance, like microlam, let's say microlam, if the allowance is not there, you can't like notch it. That's prohibited. But basically, know this section. Okay, straight up. And this diagram basically shows the 1/6 rule. Shows the anyway, you see it. Yeah, you can figure it out. Just know on the end it's a quarter versus a sixth. Okay, if I'm like, in the old homes, you see a lot the diagonal, like 1 inch nominal wood. Know that if you're on 24 inch center to center on your joist, it's 3/4 inch thickness. Basically same stuff with all this. Sanded plywood, a little bit different here. But these, know that there's the subfloors here and the roofing's here, okay? Know that a 32/16 sheathing, you see that all the time. It's rated 32 inches is center to center supported for roof. 16 is center to center supported for, what do you call it? Flooring. That's what it is. So 16 inches, as you can see there. So anyway, makes sense. Oh yeah, particle board. Been asked this recently. 1/4 inch is your minimum thickness. Site preparation. You'll always get asked about this. You're allowed to leave fill in. They'll tell you what do you have to remove. It's this stuff you can leave fill in. Moisture barrier. Once again, minimum 6 mil poly. Screws. Oh yeah, screws for steel to steel connections. 1/2 inch offset. Keep that in mind. I always forget if it's 1/4 or 1/2, but just remember 1/2 inch. Okay, so this is a little funky. Just know they're going to have joist designations that are marked on your joists, and just know this table exists in the wall bracing section. So the sheathing, I guess anyway, not wall bracing, the flooring area. But know that you'll be asked, well, what's the rating on it? Well, know that they'll give you some parameters for cold form steel joists. Just know how to basically record what I have here. You don't have to have perfect knowledge on these things, but basic, I understand the basics. I know it's $305 to take the test, but honestly, just highlight these things. Repeatedly go back and look them up, and then go take the test. And if you fail, you fail. You know what, you need to study more, but I really wouldn't worry about it. I've never failed one of these tests. So I mean, just highlight the stuff I identify. Okay, what's the thickness of concrete floors? Always 3.5 inches. There's allowances, but generally speaking, for garage and stuff like that, they always allow you to do 3.5 inches. Okay, so this will throw you. Floor joists. Bill, I've been asked this. I've been asked this before. So what are the parameters associated with splicing a floor joist? It has to be approved. It has to be engineered. So when you're doing rails, this is a little bit different. Know that there's 8 screws. Excuse me. Yeah, eight screws per side is what. No, it's 4 screws. 4 screws per side is what it is on this joint. But that doesn't apply to. Oh man, boy, I'm getting tired here. It doesn't apply to seams. So just know that seams always have to be engineered, and you won't miss that question. All right. Okay. No. So if you're doing a fill under a slab, know that you can have a compacted depth with gravel of 24 inches, compacted depth of regular dirt, sand or gravel, of regular earth backfill of 8 inches. Okay, compacted. You can't go above that. They'll ask you that. They'll throw you. I've actually built homes that go way over that, but nobody's ever hassled me. But the reality is the code says 24 inches. Um, Yeah, so this is the one place where there's a different vapor retard than 6 mil. Just know the section 506.2.3. A little bit different. A lot of the stuff you just don't need to know. Okay, you'll be asked about utility grades. There's different stud qualities, number one, number two, select, whatever else. Utility grade. But okay, so 16, you can use utility grade studs for load bearing exterior walls. If it's just one story, it's a one-story structure supporting a roof. You're allowed to do it. So it's not supporting more than a roof and a ceiling. Okay. And it's 16 inches on center. So you can't go 24 inches on center. You just need to know that. They'll ask you that. Um, okay, so let's say you have trusses on 24-inch centers and you have studs on 16-inch centers. This will something they'll ask you. You have to know that your trusses can't be placed more than 5 inches away from the stud support, even though you have a double top plate. Something to keep in mind. Oh yeah, and your top plate too. Keep in mind your offset. So when you have a double top plate, you have to be your offset can't be more than 24 inches. Just read this; it'll make sense to you. The fastener table. There's a few odds and ends here. Just kind of know this exists. I'd recommend highlighting the sections I've highlighted. Know that your minimal thickness for wood structural panels are 3/8. I'll ask that on 12-inch centers. Or field staples or nailing 12 inches is what that means. Know this as well. So 2x6s, you'll get asked this guaranteed. You have to have, if you're supporting like two stories, you have to be on 16-inch centers. Otherwise, you can get away with the 2x6 on 24-inch centers almost across the board. You will be asked occasionally about like a 3x4. I personally never used a 3x4 in framing. I don't know why they even have this, but they'll ask on, of these lists that they give you, they don't include 2x6s. What can you frame a structure supporting 2 stories above it, and it's a 3x4. Okay, you always need 3 studs at the corner unless you have cleats. It'll ask you, it'll allow you what the exception is for not having 3 studs at a corner. You can never go more than 24 inches. So with the 2x3, okay? This you can never go more than 24 inches, but if I look elsewhere at this table, I noticed table 602.3 parenthesis 5, it limits it's to 16 inches. So I have a note here. This says 24 inches. This says 16 inches. If a CO or inspector ever asks why you're going 24 inches, just point to this. I don't know what else to say. It's kind of funky. Okay, know this on your studs. Okay, so load bearing is 40%. Notches, depths of notches. Non-load bearing is 60% of your stud. Longest, basically the longest dimension. 2x6 would be like 5.5, 5.25. So know that you can bore a hole up to 60%, but you have to be 5/8 inch away from the wall. You can actually bore up to 60%, but here's the deal. If you're in a load-bearing wall, you have to be at 40%. A load-bearing wall is 40%. But if you double studded it, like look here at this example. In a load-bearing wall, you can have 2 consecutively on a load-bearing wall, the double top plate here, load-bearing wall, as long as you're 1/2 inch or 5/8 inch away from the wall and not more than 2. That's what it comes down to. You can go up to 60%. Normally, only 40% is allowed on those walls. And then, and then a lot of times, obviously, you're going to need to notch more than that. What you do at these notches here, so figure 602.6.1, just read more here to understand it. But it's 16 gauge metal with 8 nails on either side is how you do that. You got to reinforce it. Otherwise, they'll get you. Okay, wood structural box headers. Oh, yeah. I was asked this recently. So if you have like the question was header 7 feet 6 inches for an opening, non-bearing wall, 8-foot high wall. What size of your header? And they give you a bunch of selections. The minimum header you could use is a 1 2x4. So that's what gives you the allowance. That I want to be clear. This is not in your girder header tables. This is something completely different. So know that. Oh yeah, and jack studs. Normally it's one jack stud you need per side of your header. Um, so just I'll show you the table for that when we get to it. Also know that if you're more than 4 feet on your cripple wall, you have to frame it for an additional story. If you're like on a lower foundation. So if it's above 48 inches, just plan on sizing your wall as a higher number of stories. Yeah, I'll just explain this really quick. So girder spans. If I had a snow load of 30 psf and I'm on like 36-inch span from the width, basically the width of your structure, okay? And my maximum span for the header is 5'9". I need two 2x10s. That's what it comes down to. That's how you'd use that. Understand there's a bunch of exceptions here. Always look at your footnotes. Oh yeah, number of jack studs. Let me show you this. This will throw you. So this threw me once. This is why I highlighted it here. On this example, see how it says number of jack studs at 2? What that is I have a 30 psf, 12-foot span, so really kind of smaller structure. But if I come over here, same thing. I only need one jack stud. Number of jack studs, need 1. So if they're asking you what's the minimum number of jack studs you need, always go with the minimum. So otherwise it'll throw you. Yeah, just know that. Explain that. Okay, hey, know this. They'll give you a question. They gave me a question like, so there's this leaden bracing, 1x4. Which of these angles is acceptable? And they had like 30 degrees, 40 degrees, 50 degrees, 75 degrees. The answer is 50 degrees because it's 45 to 60 degrees right there. Yeah, just know what the standards are. You can look them up in chapter 44, but skip through this. Okay, grout. Know that you can use type M or type S. Oh yeah, down on the foundation. So like if you're doing, see we're doing, what's the name of this section here? Let me find it. 606.2. What is 606.2? Yeah, 606.2, masonry construction materials. Masonry construction materials. So if you're using like CMUs, concrete masonry units or whatever, so you need a quarter on your foundation between your first CMU and your foundation. The other ones are 3/8, but keep in mind it's 3/8 plus or minus 1/8. So the question will be, what's the maximum amount of bed joint you can have? Technically, it's 3/8 plus 1/8, which is half an inch. Know that. Oops. Oh yeah, don't use mortar after 1.5 hours, or when it starts to harden up, obviously. But 1.5 hours is the magic number. Don't pump through aluminum pipes. If you're doing grout, if you're filling like CMUs or something, a hollow concrete masonry units, hollow masonry, if you're filling them, your lift, if your wall's 8 feet, you can do one lift, 8 feet. But if you're more than 64 inches, like if you're 10 feet or something, you got to do lifts in 64 inches and plan for that. Know that the mortar projections can't be more than a half an inch. Oh boy, let's see. Oh yeah, you have to have mortar protection of your rebar of at least a 1/4 inch. So keep that in mind. Oh, this will get you too. So what's the minimum thickness on a residential structure for a 1-story roof using masonry walls? And it's actually 6 inches. And you're allowed to go an additional 6 feet. So the question I had was like, what's the minimum thickness of the masonry wall for a building that is 14 feet, a 1-story building that's 14 feet 7 inches on its gable side? And the answer is 6 inches, and it's based upon this. So you have you're not more than 9 feet for your regular story, but then you have an additional 6 feet. I think the answer was 14 feet 7 inches. Yeah, just know the magic number. If you have like an 8-inch wall, you need supports every 20 times that, or 160 inches. It'll show you right here. This is a multiple. It's a you multiply it. So yeah, I think I already mentioned 10 times the least dimensions. So if I had a 6 by 10 pier, it'd be 60 inches high type thing. Oh yeah, 16 inches comes all over the place with your horizontal joint reinforcement W1.7 wires. So 16 inches. Yeah, you'll see that all over the place. If you're when in doubt, just guess 16 inches. Also, now this is masonry construction. I mentioned before 7 inches is how you would put the rod into your foundation to be able to, do a 1/2 inch bolt for your sole plate. For masonry, it's 4 inches. Just remember 4 inches embedded into your masonry. And then your lap joint, it's 40 times diameter. So if I was using 1/2 inch rebar, number 4, I would have to use a 20 inch lap joint. So just keep that in mind. That comes up a lot. Okay, so here, this is a little bit different. So let's see, multiple white masonry. Just remember these numbers, 24 vertical, 36 horizontal. That's what'll pop up for bonding with wall ties to your joint reinforcement. 16 inches comes up again. Once again, it's that reinforcement you need every 16 inches. The bed of your mortar. Oh yeah, for walls, don't go over 6 inches slump. We'll be asked that. Okay. Cover. I mentioned before 1.5 inches. Just keep in mind it's 1.5 inches if you're like under 6 on the weather side. Keep in mind that's the weathered side. Although I don't think it makes a difference here. Oh yeah, there it is. It's 3/4 inch. ACI 318 specs this out in more detail, but yeah, 3/4 inch on the inside of your foundation, 2 inches on the outside if you're number 6 or more, 1.5 inches on the outside if you're number 5 or less. Number 5 like rebar. So 1/2 would be a number 4. It's the number of 1/8 you'd have. So a 1 inch thick rebar, that would be a number 8, for instance. That's how that works. Okay, this is a funky table. Took me forever to figure this out. Just basically, not going to explain this or take too long, but just kind of highlight what I did. That was the question that was there. All right, so once again, embedding in concrete at 7 inches is a magic number. You'll see that all over. Just remember 4 inches for the masonry, 7 inches for the concrete ties. 7 inches again. Okay, if you're using gypsum plaster over like lath, it's 3 coats minimum. If it's over like concrete, it's 2 coats minimum. Okay, that's the difference. So plaster shall be not less than 3 coats were applied over metal lath, not less than 2 coats over concrete. So if it's concrete, it's a 1/2 inch. That's just what you need to remember. But just remember the 3 coats versus 2 coats distinction. Once again, I mentioned before, support for gypsum, metal lath, 16 inches. It's a magic number. Don't get thrown off by this. Screw fastening. What kind of screws are you going to be putting in for gypsum board panel products? You need to be a minimum 1 1/8 inch. Type W, type S, 12 inch on center. There's some variability in terms of tightness, but for what I was researching there, it was 12 inches. I just threw that in there. And that's based on what that's based on is 5/8 of penetration into the wood. If you're using 1/2 inch gypsum, 1/2 inch plus 5/8 is 1 1/8. That's where you get that number from. Um, Keep in mind, you'll be asked this: what's the minimum thickness of gypsum? It's 3/8. Um, no, like if you're in a bathroom and you're applying some adhesive and screwing things in place, if you have 1/2 inch gypsum, and the minimum spacing there is 12 inches for nails, for instance, 16 inch for screws. But if you're not adhesing using glue, it's less. As far as roofing goes, or wall, I guess we're still in walls, aren't we? Yeah. So if you're using like a water resistant barrier, applying it horizontally, know that the horizontal lapping. So you're going this way, you have this 4 foot or whatever going that way and this way. The horizontal overlap is 2 inches, and on the ends, it's going to be 6 inches. So it says it right here, 2 inches and 6 inches. That's how that works. What's the minimum size of your vinyl siding? 0.035 inch. Minimum fastener length. Okay, this is kind of funky. This is where you're going to find it. If you're putting in some vinyl siding, it's 1 1/4 inches for the minimum nail height. Minimum siding is 3/8. I mentioned that before. It's there again. Okay, so lath. This is where it gets a little bit different. Just keep in mind, you can't be spaced more than 7 inches. So it'll throw you a little bit of that for your supports. Okay, your anchored stone and your bricks, they can't be more than 5 inches thick. Okay, this will throw you a little bit. So, like, if I'm in a seismic category D structure where I'm at, what's the height I can use? And keep in mind that 1 and 2 family detached dwellings, I'm allowed to go 28 feet on the gable side. So 20 feet here, I can add in 8 feet. So don't forget that. Same thing up here. You can add additional 8 feet. I'm allowed to go 3 stories in non-category D seismic zone, but for seismic zone D, I'm only allowed to go 2 stories. But 28 feet is the maximum height of my bricks. Lintels. How long can a 3x3 or 3.5 by 3.5 angle iron go? At 6 feet, as an example for your lintel that you're supporting your brick veneer on. I had the question, what minimum size gauge for supports for bricks when you're tying them in? It's number 22. Oh yeah, and keep in mind it's 2 2.75 square feet per support. In seismic D, it's 2 square feet. I had a question on this. Gave a list of acceptable code items, and then they try to deceive you. They said, in seismic category D, supports are 3 square feet. Well, no, it's 2 square feet. It's right there. Oh yeah, I had a question on this. Gave you a list of things that are permissible. It said which of these are not permissible, and the answer was you can't screw through or bolt through the decorative face of an EIF. How did they say that? Yeah, decorative trim shall not be face nailed through EIFSs. So they were trying to deceive me on that one. Okay. Oh yeah, ridge board minimum size is 1 inch nominal, which what is that? 7/8. So 3/4, whatever nominal size is, I can't remember. Okay, these are rafter spans. They're different than the other ones we looked at, the joist and girder spans. Um, things that'll catch you, is it supporting a ceiling or not? So some tables have ceiling not attached, some have ceiling attached. Just make sure you go to the right thing. If there is no ground snow load, you always default to 30 psf anyway. It's just how it works. But use an example. I have a dead load of 20 psf, ceiling, the sheetrock's attached to the rafters. I'm using 2x6 rafters, Douglas Fir larch number 1, 16-foot centers for my rafters. I'm allow a span of 11 feet 5 inches. Okay, collar ties every 4 feet. Know that. If you're doing purlins, you want to minimize or bracing for that matter. So your purlins can be unsupported for 4 feet is what it comes down to. It says it right there. Oh, no. Sorry. Oh, what were you doing? You going anywhere? Okay. Give me a little. I'll meet you out there if I come. All right. Bearing. Once again, rafters 1.5 inches. Notches and holes. Notches and holes are the same as they apply to joists. So just keep that in mind. You'll be asked. Let's go back on this one. How far away from the end of the rafter notch do I have to have a hole? It's 2 inches. It's the same thing with the holes and joists. Okay. You'll get nailed by a CO a lot. They'll say, your wood structural panels all have to be staggered. Well, technically they don't. There's some allowances that you can get away with not staggering your panels when you're putting up like roof sheathing or something. Once again, it's all 1.5 on wood or steel for your supports. Metal joists, just keep in mind they have to be marked. Let's see, mark some of these to make it easy. Okay, vent area. So I mentioned before the crawl space is one out of 150. Same thing applies to roofs. You have some allowances here. Go down to 300. 1 out of 300 if you apply some other things here. Attic access, yeah. So keep in mind it's 22 by 30 through the ceiling, but you only need it if you have a 30-inch head clearance. You have to have at least a 30-inch head clearance in an attic. Okay, what do we got here? Oh, roof assemblies. you can't use the question they'll ask you on this one is they'll give you a list of stuff that you can use for Class A roof. There's Class A, Class B, Class C, and unclassified roofing. We're talking Class A roofing. You can't use wood shingles in Class A roofing, period. Not allowed. Also, all roofing is 26 gauge steel, corrosion resistant, either for drip edge or valleys. Just keep that in mind. They'll ask you that. Also, if you're doing like a flat roof, you can never connect an overflow drain with a standard drain on your roof. You'll get asked that as well. 212 is the minimum slope for asphalt sheeting. Just keep in mind, if you're less than that, it's a flat roof. Oh yeah, you have to penetrate 3/4 inch into the material with the nails you're fastening asphalt roofs. You have to have 2 fasteners per shingle or 4 fasteners per bank of shingles. Let's see, 4 units. Oh yeah, and as far as underlayment goes, you need 2 layers of underlayment if you're under 4 units and 12. 1 layer if you're 4 or more above. Clay units, 2.5 units and 12. Metal roof shingles, 3 units and 12. Wood shingles is 3 units and 12. So you can't put wood shingles on a 212 roof. It has to be a 312 or bigger. Just remember that side lap on wood shingles is 1.5 inches. 2 nails per shingle. Know that the wood shingles have to cover each other. This gives you the exposure on a. Let's say you have an 18-inch long shingle, 412 roof pitch. You can only have 5.5 inches of that roof shingle exposed to the weather. That's what that comes down to. Once again, 26 gauge. It pops up everywhere for roofs. Always, you're not gonna. You should never use anything under 26 gauge for roof. Spacing between shakes. So you need, if you look at some wood shingles, they always have a gap, and it has to be between 3/8 and 1/2 inch. You can't go less than 3/8 or more than 1/2 inch. Shake placement. You have so not less than 30. Number 30. You can use number 15 for some other stuff, but number 30 here minimum for wood shake placement. Oh yeah, and you can't, like, say you have 2 layers of asphalt, so 1 re-roofing plus the original for asphalt shingle roofing. You couldn't put a third one on. So existing roof has 2 or more applications. You're not allowed to put another one on. The other thing is you can put a lot of roofing material back on, but you cannot use aggregate surfacing materials on like a flat roof. You can't reinstall that. Not allowed. Okay, so seismic category D, you need 4 reinforcements if your chimney is up to 40 inches in width. So just 4 number 4s. If you go above 40 inches, you need to jump that up. It gives you the specs here. You can just read it. Anchorage. Okay, this will get you. It's this huge anchors. They have to be tied to 4 rafters or floor joists if you're anchoring your chimney to your structure. As far as firebox, unless you have some exceptions, if you have a fire brick lining of 2 inches, your back and side walls have to be at least 8. Where lining is not provided, you have to be 10 inches. The 8 inches comes up in residential. I saw the 10 inches on the commercial test. So it depends on what test you're taking. When I say commercial, I mean commercial building inspector, ICC CBI. Okay, minimum depth is not less than 20 inches for the fireplace. And you can't have a damper located less than 8 inches above your lintel. So the opening, the top of your opening. Hearth extension, minimum is 16 inches out, 8 inches wide. But if you have an opening greater than 6 square feet, it jumps to 20 inches and 12 inches. Just keep that in mind. Okay. Yeah, exposed combustibles in the front, so always 6 inches. From the construction of your chimney, it's 2 inches. That's what you need to remember. It's always 2 inches. And then if you have like a mantle, it has to be 12 inches above. They use this little formula here. If you're under that. Yeah, and footings have to extend 6 inches out from a chimney. Keep that in mind. Corbelling, just remember it's 1/2, no more than 1/2. Yeah, and you can't have any change in dimensions of your chimney within 6 inches passing through a wall or anything. Oh yeah, this is really important. You'll always be asked about this. Chimneys shall not extend less than 2 feet higher than any portion of a building within 10 feet. But the chimney itself has to be at least 3 feet for more where it penetrates the ceiling or the roof. I mean, opening size. Let's use an example. Let's say I have 1,300 square inches here. I use this as an example. So my opening in the fireplace is, I'm facing, above the hearth. It's 1,300 square inches. What you do is you divide that by 12. You come up here as an example. Let's say 13, in my example that I used or I saw was 1,300 square inches. I'd come over here and I'd say, oh yeah, that ended up being a 12-inch round I needed. If I had a 24 by 32 inch opening, I'd simply just follow this over like I did. Follow the line down. Comes here, and then you come over here. It ends up being a 10-inch. I'm not gonna. I don't want to explain that. I don't have time. Uh, yeah. Always fire block. Chimney crickets are required. Great when your width is greater than 30 inches. And you use these for your cricket size. Lizzie, sorry. You're beautiful. Hey, I will come out. Okay. Let me finish this up. I'll see you. Okay, shall not be located. Yes, it was incredible. Okay, bye-bye. Okay, so we're going to jump into thermal efficiency now. If you're not going to use the IRC for a house, use the IECC, the International Energy Conservation Code. You'll be asked about this. What kind of lamps can I use? They'll say, what's the, maximum, allowed, whatever, 65 lumens per watt. I can't remember how they worded it exactly, but that's the source for it. Okay, if you don't have specific instructions, always default to like manufacturer's instructions for installation of stuff, whatever it is, roofing, particle board, you name it. Electrical. Oh yeah, your installation certificate can be placed in a variety of places. They'll ask you if the electrical panel is okay. That is your reference right there that it is. These give some D rating for insulation. If you're like under 500 square feet for ceiling area, or there's a few other odds and ends here, you're allowed to dip down. Ceiling rating for like Mississippi would be 49. For Montana is like 60. You can find these climate zones. I already showed you that table. You can look up. I think I showed you that table. Maybe I did. Okay, see the climate zones. See the climate zones 7, 6, 5A is still treated as an A here. You just come over and A. So 5, 4. Yeah, they give some marine designations there. Just look through the table, you'll figure it out. I don't want to go into time to explain that. Okay, let's see where we're at next. Slab on grade. Gives you some insulation requirements for slabs and crawl spaces. Sunrooms, R19's minimum sunroom. I apologize, I'm going through this fast. My objective here is to go through the IRC so you can pass your test. Ducts buried. Okay, so R8, make sure your ducts have an R8 minimum if they're buried in the blow-in insulation in your attic. If you have a mechanical system and you're outside of 55, above 155, below 55, you need at least R3 on your piping. That's one they'll get you on. Let's see. ERV. Yeah, just know these percentages, 75% here. Okay, appliance access. If you're doing like an attic, this is commercial and residential. You need a 30 by 30 access platform. You need wood, like a unobstructed path, at least 24 inches wide and 30 inches high. Opening is 22 and 30, but you have to be able to have the size to get your appliance out of your attic. Just highlight that stuff. It'll get you what you need. Not going to waste time reading that. 18 inches is a magic number. If you have like a piloted water heater, make sure it's 18 inches off the ground. Some other caveats there and allowances, but generally speaking, that's what you need. Okay, so clothes dryer. This is important to know. 35 feet is the maximum length you're going to have. You'll see that come up a lot. And then over here, these are equivalent lengths. So the question will be, I have two 90-degree elbows. They're 5 feet each, right? And I have 27 feet of horizontal length. Well, is that allowed? Well, the answer is no, because it's 2 times 5 is 10. 10 plus 27 is 37, and that violates 35. So just know how that works. Yeah, bathrooms. I think I already quoted 20 and 50 CFM. Ventilation. What's the minimum galvanized thickness for a round duct? It's 0.013. Just kind of look for stuff like that. Yeah, here's a question you'll get asked. How high above the ground, the dirt, can you have a duct that's 4 inches? Unless you have some kind of protective feature in place. There's some caveats to that. Oh yeah, you can have greater than 200 degree Fahrenheit air blowing from your furnace. That'll pop up. Okay, length. I just read this stuff. Normally it's 3 feet. But when you're dealing with like an oil furnace, it's 2 feet above where it passes through your chimney and 2 feet above any other location. So it's a little bit different than solid fuel burning chimneys. But sauna, remember 194 degrees, magic number to limit it. Water heaters. Yeah, if you're using a water heater for space heating, you have to have, well, it's not the section, I guess, but it has to be potable water. You can't have fuel-fired water heaters in closets. Hydronic piping, heating piping has to be sleeved if it's going through masonry or concrete. Okay, if you have like a fuel storage container in your basement, 660 gallons is maximum. If it's more than 10 gallons, it'd be 5 feet away from any flame source. And you're going to have a venting going out to the outside. It has to be 2 feet away from any opening. Appliance location. Yeah, so gas stuff. You can't, they give a bunch of funky things here. You can't be in sleeping rooms. Anyway, this is basically the fuel gas code and the IMC and the IFGC stuff as applicable to the IRC. That's what these sections are. But okay, so venting. If you're going to have the building self-vented, like you have to have 50 cubic feet of volume in your airspace per 1,000 BTU. If you're going to not have a specific vent or a room that has a specific opening to the outdoors. So you can actually vent without having an opening to the outdoors, but it has to be that 50 cubic feet per 1,000 BTU. So if you're going to know this section here, it's 1 square inch per 1,000 BTU, but it's top and bottom. Okay? So it's a 10-inch, let's say a minimum 10-inch by 10-inch at the top of a room. We're talking rooms here, okay? You have opening top, bottom. It's minimum 10 by 10 here, 10 by 10 here. Even though it says 1 square inch per 1,000 BTU, it's actually 2 square inches per 1,000 BTU because 1 square inch is at the top, 1's at the bottom. That's what these mean. It'll always get you in a test. You got to know that's double. It's actually double what it is. Oh yeah, 25% for metal louvers, 75% free air for screens on metal louvers is 25%. But know the section like applicable to the louvers in your attic vents, stuff like that, or for vents in the water heater room. No, the piping size methods. I think I was asked of these four, which is not the approved method. You have the sizing tables is approved, longest length methods approved. These are your sizing tables. Go forever here. And then the other third one is the branch length method. I think the one that was not allowed in that list was the appliance method or something goofy, some made up statement like that. 5 PSF or 5 PSI for your gas lines. There's some allowances here and there. So cast iron pipes never to be used for gas lines. There's a bunch of prohibitions on gas lines you got to keep in mind. Okay, so testing. Just not going to go through that. That's what you need to test too. Okay, this will get you for piping. If there's any possibility that you can have any kind of water, you meet a minimum of 1/4 inch and 15 feet for your slope to prevent like traps or freezing or stuff like that. As far as appliance shutoff valves, have to be in the same room, have to be within 6 feet, and readily accessible. Supports, if I have a nominal, iron pipe, 1 inch, it's an 8 inch, 8-foot supports minimum. Same thing. Okay, let's listed cap. See how it says listed cap there? If you come over here, there's not listed cap. So this will throw you. There's actually not a requirement for listed caps in some chimney applications or vent applications. So that's a question that'll throw you. That kind of threw me on something because the answer is not a listed cap. Which of these 4 items is required? And the answer is not a listed cap because technically it says listed, but technically some applications it's not listed. Okay. Yeah, that's all the stuff we've already seen. This is duplicated. Just yeah, you'll ask this. The question is, what are the support distant requirements for piping laying on the ground? And here's your answer. As long as it's on the firm bed, it's fine. Yeah, 15 and 21. Once again, a lot of this is IPC type stuff. So they have this in multiple places in the IRC. 900 square inches, folded up chair. You'll get that question potentially, particularly on ADA type stuff. Okay, you'll get asked this. This is funky. If you have a whirlpool bathtub, if you're installing one, you need a 12 by 12 opening to access the pump. But if the pump's more than 2 feet away, you need an 18 by 18. So that'll throw you a little bit. Okay, it'll ask. I got a question. Non-potable, irrigation water, non-potable irrigation water needs to be identified with this stuff, and one was, needs to be identified with a metal tag. It doesn't say metal tag here, but you have to infer a little bit. They're just trying to trip you up. I think I had a question on this, a gooseneck faucet. You'd have to know 3/4 inch. It's 1.5 inch for the minimum air gap. Oh yeah, know this 80 psi. The ratings are for 80 psi. If they're above 80 psi, you have to have a pressure reducer. So like your ratings are 2.5 GPM at 80 psi. Um, what these calculate your combined design fixture units, DFUs. So just know, okay, let's picture this. Let's say there's a two-story building. I have on the top story I have a full bath. That's a 3.6 DFU. Bottom story I have a half bath. That's a 2.6 DFU. I have a clothes washer, 1.4 DFU, and I have a kitchen sink, 1.4 DFU. Add those up, whatever that ends up being. In this particular example, 2.8 plus 2.6, what is that? 5.4. 5.4 plus 3.6. What is that? 6, 9. So you end up total DFUs of 9. Then I'd have to measure that. I think the question was, how many DFUs do I have to supply to that structure? The answer was 9. So then you can look over here to find GPM if you wanted to. They ask that. In other words, if for instance you calculate a 9 DFUs, well, what's the actual GPM I'd need? Just do the conversion here. That's how you do it. Oh yeah, they have some. They had a couple questions like this. What's the maximum temperature you can have for I can't remember how it was worded. Near a fireplace. The answer is 225 degrees Fahrenheit for your sprinkler head. Sprinkler heads are standard rated 135 to 225. Intermediate, they don't trigger until 175. Same upper end, 225. Okay. Shows you some standards to use for that. Drainage piping. Okay, so if I'm 2.5 inches or less, you're right. Yeah, it's 1.25. If I'm above 2.5 inches, see. Yeah, it's under 2.5. I'm sorry, under 2.5 is 1.25 and 12. For 2.5 diameter and less. Oh, I'm sorry, it is above it. 3 inch and 4. 3 inch and above is 1%. That's 1/8. This always throws me. I always go when I do construction 1/4 per foot, but you can actually use 1/8 per foot for slope for sewer lines on 3 inch, 4 inch, etc. Just know that. Okay, fixture units. This gets a little complicated because you have difference between branch stacks and drains, things like that. But just take a best guess at it. If you just highlight the stuff I have, those are the questions I've seen. Yeah, so keep this too. Your vents need to be 10 feet away from the lot line. Um, I'm not going to read all this. If you So electrical equipment, just remember this chart: 36, 30, 6, 6, so 78 inches high. Um, a little bit different if you have higher voltages from the NEC, but anything you're doing with residential, this is going to work fine for. Always look at footnotes too. Yeah, this is a question that'll nail you. Panel board, service equipment, etc., shall not be located in bathrooms or over stairways. You'll actually get asked that. I've seen that. I saw that in commercial building, commercial electrical inspector. They asked that question. I saw that in residential. Um, building inspector, I think, is where it was as well. Yeah, just know the definition of a feeder. Yeah, know your minimum's 100 amps for a house. 50 amps is a mobile home. Oh yeah, here's another one you need. 3 volt amps per square foot if you're sizing lighting and general receptacle uses. So 3 watts basically. Just keep that in mind. Know the size of your grounding electrode conductor, but you normally think your feeder, your service line is 4 copper. You come down here, see 4, 2 or smaller. Yeah, you go with an 8 on your copper grounding electrode conductor. So just kind of know how these tie together. Uh, look at this too. This is something else I noticed. So look at this footnote E. You can actually go to a 6. So even though out here I've specced out, if I think the question was 3/0 copper 4, but then you go over here and you can get away with a 6. So read your exceptions. Uh, it gets very detailed. I don't have time to explain it. Pools. Okay, had a question. Swimming pool bonding. They had the enclosure of the light. They had the stairway in a pool. They had the what was the other option? Can't remember. And then they had like a towel rack somewhere, a metal towel rack. The answer was the metal towel rack didn't need to be bonded because the other ones were all within, a certain distance of the pool or within the pool. So that's how you figure that out. Sorry, I'm going too fast. Show you this. Like I said, highlight what I highlighted. Trust me, it works out. Okay, sizing 100% of the first 3,000 watts, 35%. So if they say if you had like uh, let's say you had 5,000 watts spec'd, you'd have 3,000 watts you'd have to size for, and then 35% of the other 2,000 watts. Okay. If you have two ranges, size for 11 kVA. Let's say you had two that were 8 apiece, 16 total. You'd actually size for two because who's going to be using two electric ranges at the same size? You just usually factor in something a little smaller. 12 feet apart. Remember that magic number. They just show you where the receptacles need to go on a non-kitchen location. Number 12 inches is the magic number for countertops requiring outlets. I'm trying to think, I had the knot there. I think garages, you don't need arc faults in garages, is what that came down to. So I think that was the question I saw once. Yeah, I had the question, how many of these THHNs, 12 gauge, could I fit in half-inch conduit? The number's 8. That's where that popped up at. Outlet boxes designated for ceiling pounds. 70 pounds is a ceiling fan. 70 pounds is the limit. Damp and wet locations. Offset your panel by 1/4 inch from the wall. Conductors. Yeah, just know this about offsets from boarded lights. No, this is important. 1.5 inches from recessed light to combustible construction, or 3 inches to insulation. Okay, unless it's specifically designated for otherwise, which the new ones, the LEDs usually are. You don't need to do that anymore. Snow melting does not need to be ground fault protected. Keep that in mind. Pool, know that it's 42 inches high for a pool. They'll ask that. I've seen that come up. Bonding, minimum solid is 8 gauge for your bonding on your pool. I'm not going to go through all this and explain it. Just highlight what I have. Read the parts I've highlighted. Let's go through on your IRC and highlight them. Okay, the rest is just going over these standards. I highlight them to make them easy to find, but you can see, just highlight what I have here. Okay, I think I'm wrapped up. Okay, that will take you a week to go through. Okay, but those, if you go through all of these, okay, yeah, just you'll get a question about on your plans examiner, residential plans examiner, about maximum developed length. Just understand. Yeah, just basically take a look at that. I don't want to take the time to explain that. Anyway, so that's it for the IRC. Okay. Um, you go through each of those sections and give like a week-long discussion, but this, if you go through and do what we just talked about, know these sections. Even if the question's not here, it's like here, you'll know where to go to, so it makes sense. Anyway, thanks for watching, and good luck on your tests.